Hello, everyone. Welcome to Under the Wing. I am your host, Andrew Wingard, and I am extremely grateful that you're sharing your time with us today. I am excited that I get the opportunity to share with you the experiences and stories from all walks of life. Gather round and let's begin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me again on another episode of Under the Wing. I'm your host, Andrew Wingard, and we have a very special guest here today, Jenna Parkany. And she's very special to me because, one, she's a Disney alum. And so I'm pretty excited to have her on to talk about her experience with Disney. But she's also the founder of JC Creative Media, and we're going to dive into a little bit about her journey and her experience. Jenna, welcome.
Welcome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. And, as I started making my list of people who I wanted to have on the show, I wasn't in a fraternity or a sorority. And so basketball kind of consumed my life. And everyone always asks, hey, did you ever pledge? And I'm like, nah, I just didn't really have time. And I know that athletes do both. And so, when I thought about who would be on the show, I thought about Disney. And so I may not have pledged to an actual Greek, but I feel like Disney we have our own fraternity sorority kind of family.
Oh, yes. It's definitely a family that, whether you like it or not, you are now a part of. No matter how much time you spend with the company, you are now in that family.
It's crazy. I mean, it doesn't matter what year you were in the program. You could have been 10 years before me, 10 years after me. I mean, it literally has been a fraternity type situation, and even the connections that we've had. And I've helped someone get a job because they work for Disney. And I don't know why I did it at that time, but he was a great person. But I felt like that being that he was Disney, oh, he has to be solid. And so like I vouched for him just because of the name.
Yeah, I think that happens more commonly than we think. We're immediately connected to that person, whether we want to be or not. So it's really fun.
For sure. Well, let's dive into this conversation and talking about the Disney program. What inspired you to apply for the actual program when you were looking at, doing that?
Yeah, so I will be very upfront about this. This seed was planted in me very, very early on. I remember visiting Disney with my family. I was probably 10 or 11 at the time. And one of the cast members, instead of having, because every Disney cast member has their location where they're from on their name tag. Yep. And I loved connecting with people that way at Disney and asking them about their home country or, their state or whatever. And I came across someone who said the Ohio State University. And I was like, that's so weird. Why does it say a college? And so I asked her and she's like, well, I do this thing called the Disney College Program. And that sold it for me. I talked to her for probably like another 15 minutes. So obviously at 10 years old, I had no college plans or no future plans whatsoever, except now that I wanted to spend a semester in Florida working at Walt Disney World. And a lot of the decisions that I made throughout high school and in college really were set up for that opportunity. So I have no problem saying that I had wanted this experience very early on.
That's interesting because you have been molded for that opportunity for a really long time.
Yeah.
Whereas I my first time at Disney was for the actual Disney intern program. And I tell people shamefully that my first time on Disney's campus, I remember seeing the Aristocats. And I was like, I am almost a grown man and I probably shouldn't be feeling like this right now. But I was so excited and it was just mind blowing. And so, since you've kind of been molded to this position for long ago, what was it like to actually step foot? All right, I'm in the program, I'm working for Disney. What was that like?
Well, it was not easy. Even though I had this, dream, I will say I did not get in probably for 3 semesters. So really? I had been trying and watching every YouTube tutorial to try to make that application perfect. So when I finally got in and I was at Disney University, which what that experience is like at traditions, and you're really overwhelmed and you get your ears for the first time. I'm like, yeah, it's not, again, now we're doing like initiation, right? Like in
Right.
Greek life. But I was so overwhelmed and I had this picture painted in my head of what it was going to be like, and it completely exceeded my expectations. I was
Wow.
just over the moon. So that had sold it for me. And I was like, this is insane. This, like, I want to do this forever, or I want to do this for a really long time. So having that experience coming from like this huge momentum that had been building up for a really long time, it was like a huge breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So you applied 3 times prior to actually being accepted into the program?
Yes, so I had applied since I was obviously eligible. So my first semester at YSU, I had applied immediately, like no longer in consideration. It was, and that was like, oh my gosh, wait, okay, this is a little bit harder than they make it seem. It's not just like everybody gets this opportunity. So I had to do a little bit more work. And looking back on it, it was perfect timing when I actually did get to do the program. It was, the first semester of my junior year, so literally right in the middle of my college experience. And
Oh, nice.
I wouldn't have traded that for, going my first year, missing, some of the really great moments that I had during college. But yeah, it was a lot of like, I was almost studying for these
Wow.
applications. After the second rejection, I was like, okay, we need to get serious. We're running out of semesters here.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. You apply 3 times, you don't get it, right? And there has to be some form of perseverance into that itself. And describe the feeling. You get the first rejection letter. How do you feel, and what are your thoughts at that time?
I think for me, it was like, it's not over. We have more time. And then the second rejection was like, okay, is this the right, like, are we doing the right things? Like, are we really not meant for this? And we're just going to keep trying. And then I finally got through. How there's like 4 steps to the process. And I
Right.
was like, okay, we're doing great. And another, I guess, piece to this puzzle was I was also auditioning to be a character performer. So I
Ah,
was going to like physical auditions and then also getting rejected from those. So it was like, you're going to have to work for this. And I kind of like that chase too, I will say. My college years there was a lot of ambition and drive in me. So I'm very grateful for that. That I was like, okay, we're gonna get there. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna tweak a few things, but we're gonna manage this. This is something we've always wanted to do. We're not gonna give up that easy.
yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. That is, I've heard stories about the grueling process of being a character, and I would not want to partake. And I was just excited to get in. I couldn't imagine going through an entire physical audition regarding to character. So you get through. You finally get in, right? So what would you say to a young professional that's maybe just got turned down from a job, or maybe they didn't get into the college they wanted to do? What I picked up a lot from just that story in itself, because it resonates with me, because it's like, man, I'm getting into this program, like I don't care what happens, I'm going to keep trying. What would you say to a young professional who's dealing with trying to push through and dealing with rejection?
Yeah, I think that there are moments in our lives that we're drawn to for very specific reasons. And for me, it was the way that when I thought about this program and I thought about the opportunity that it would give me to live in Florida for 4 months and work at a place that I loved and have a free ticket anytime that I wanted to go, that like brought me so much joy, and it motivated me so much that it was worth continuing that process. I think if you're faced with something that you keep getting rejected from, um, look at it from a different lens. If it's still sparking that joy in you and that motivation and that fire, it's not worth putting out yourself. Let them tell you, and make the tweaks that you need, but keep going after it if it lights you up. And then if it's not anymore, then reevaluate and maybe look at a different opportunity. But I think that, again, we're drawn to things for certain reasons. And we kind of have to trust the timing of those things sometimes and not put too much pressure on ourselves. But at the same time, go after, what brings you that joy and what sparks that light in you.
For sure, for sure. That's awesome. So, you get into Disney, you start your program, you're making friends, and it's time to go. All right. So, what are two to three things that you learned from your program and your time at Disney?
I learned how to really be open to new experiences, whether that be with people, with places that you go or that you visit. That spontaneity that you kind of need at that age. Like I think about college and all the things that are moving around and everything that's getting thrown at you at once. It's
Hmm.
very easy to get narrow-minded and focus on one goal, right? But when I was doing my college program, when I left and came home, I really reflected on a lot of the people that I met from all over the world, the things that I learned from them, the opportunities that the company gave me to learn about different cultures and different people. And I think that that's something that I would really um, encourage people who are doing this program or who are seeking an opportunity maybe outside of their comfort zone to really dive into, is to look at things from a different lens and kind of embrace and almost be like a sponge to all those new opportunities and new experiences, whether they come from people or stories or you know even just attractions and learning from different cast members. I mean, there's so much opportunity when you go to a place as diverse as Disney to learn those things, and they're right in front of you, so take advantage of that.
For
um,
sure.
and then I would say just do your best. I beat myself up a lot in my college program because I, could have talked to that person or that leader or, that manager, or I could have done that thing. And it's like, you're doing your best.
Yeah.
You're at a very transformative time in your life, when you're in college. So as long as you're, not getting points on your record card or getting disciplined in any way, have fun and soak it all in. And worry about, the nitty gritty stuff when you get home.
For sure. For sure. The reason I can relate to your rejection. Now, my rejection came after my program. So I finished the program, and that's gonna probably be my next question here in a bit. But I get to my program. I never missed a day. I never called off work. I picked up hours. I went to volunteer at volunteers. I tried to network with my leaders, and I applied for the professional internship, but I don't get it. I don't even get an interview. And so I'm like, what? Okay, well, that what do I do now? Because this was the plan. This was plan A, B, and C. And so I'm like trying to figure out how to do that. Of course, I went to grad school after that, but you know, it's competitive. Like Disney is extremely competitive, and I felt that I did everything right, but I still didn't make it to the next step.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that leads into the question is, you talked about preparing yourself for the actual interview and doing the applications. What advice would you give to the young Jenna who you may have seen during your time in your program, and they're like, oh, I want to be like Jenna. When I go to college, I'm gonna be an intern, right? What advice do you give that person if they're looking to join the program?
Trust in yourself, and things will work out when they're meant to. I think that comes back to, the timing of my college program really aligned with a lot of the experiences that I had in college too. And um, whether I saw it at the time or not, I got back from Disney and I had the opportunity to work as an influencer for Amazon Prime and its partners
Oh,
immediately when I
nice.
got home. So if I would have, gone to Disney later or sooner, maybe that opportunity wouldn't have presented itself to me. And that's, now come full circle, 3 years later, that's something that I do in my business that, I talk about a lot with my clients. So everything is working out in ways that you can't see, so just trust yourself, trust the process, and enjoy the moments as they come. Don't try to look too far into the future, and don't try to dwell, that you're not doing enough. Just trust in yourself and trust the process. It sounds
Yeah,
very cliche, but coming out on the other side of it, it's so true. I would probably get so irritated if someone said that to me, but it is so true.
it is. No, that's good. That's good. And I think I might have one other Disney question tied to more business side of things, but to tie up the experience at Disney, we a big part of our role for us interns as we're in the program is to help create those magical moments for our guests. And I can remember some of the magical moments that I've had. As you mentioned, the name tags and those little buttons, because I would work at the button cart because I worked at the Magic Kingdom at the main gate. So I could write things on buttons when people were there for engagements or birthdays and all of those little things. And so, do you have a magical moment that you had with a guest or fellow cast member?
Yeah, I would say, as a performer, it was, you know, I would say that it was easier to make magical moments, but I think it was more expected sometimes from performers because you would
For
have,
sure.
a couple, because it's the easiest thing to point out, right? As a celebration button or, somebody doing something.
Right.
So I really enjoyed I'm like outing myself here. When my friends and my roommates would visit me, what we call on stage. And they would come in my line and I either would expect them to be there or I wouldn't expect, they'd say they were coming and they
Right.
would get the VIP treatment sometimes from some of the characters I was performing as. And it was my favorite thing to see, them light up because they're like these adults, right? And we're all
Yeah.
like 21 at this time. And they're just getting escorted through the park by Winnie the Pooh or Chip and Dale. And like, they're like, what? It's this like, why is this person getting celebrated so much? But those are really the moments that I cherish because I got to see it light up because they weren't seeing me in the costume, they were seeing
Right.
that as that guest, as Winnie the Pooh. So those moments were really special because we talk about that still sometimes. And,
Wow.
I still have those pictures and I cherish them. But
That's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's pretty cool. I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of jealous. All right. So you're the founder of JC Creative Media. How did that come about? What inspired you to kind of dive into entrepreneurship and start your own company?
Yeah, so COVID pushed a lot of people to do, a lot of things. And I think a lot of people realized, including myself, that there was more to what they were doing. And unfortunately, I was laid off by the company in April of 2020.
Oh
And
man.
I had again built up all this momentum to work for this company and moved to Florida. And I thought that was like my end all be all. So I was completely devastated. And, um, there was a little bit of rejection coming back to the company because it was so competitive. I mean, you had cast members that worked there for 40 years that had been laid off that were trying to get their jobs back externally. So,
Wow.
um, you know, I would say the hospitality industry down here took a really big hit and I kind of had to rethink things. And fortunately for me, I knew that the role I was in wasn't my favorite thing in the world. I was a leader in food and beverage, and
Okay.
it's a tough line of business at Walt Disney World, and I applaud those cast members for doing it every day. But it wasn't for me. So I had really missed a lot of the creative things that I was doing in college. So the digital marketing, the photography, creating, graphics for different events. I did a lot of that for my sorority, and I was just like had all this creative pent up energy that I hadn't been able to utilize at Disney. And I was like, let's start freelancing. Let's start helping people out. I love the storytelling. I loved building and developing people. So why not do it? And last August, so August of 2021, I was able to go full time. And that was huge for me. And I was like, we're totally doing this. And I was open to a door of entrepreneurship that I really didn't know I was walking into. But I'm very grateful for that. And that's kind of how it was born. It's very, you know, weird way. I still like pinch myself because some part of me still thinks that I'm going to go back to Disney because I'm literally still right here. I
Right.
still reap the benefits every day. But yeah, and now that I'm in it, almost a year now, it's like I don't know what else I would be doing. So
Wow. So tying back in Disney, how and again, unfortunately, I had a couple of friends who were down there at Disney as well, and of course they took a major hit during COVID. How did your Disney experience, help or mold you into, hey, I'm going to take this leap, and this is what I'm going to do. What kind of practices or experiences helped you to be JC Creative Media?
I think, the Disney credibility itself was a great like booster seat. I think when you say, "Oh, I worked at Disney," you automatically get that credit. People raise their eyebrows like, "Oh, okay, well, she's really good at
Yeah.
customer service." You get that immediately. So that was obviously very helpful when I was talking about my experience and trying to get clients. But I think the biggest confidence booster for me was when I started doing what I was doing, and my peers at Disney were like, "Oh, that's perfect for you. Like, you should have been doing this with the company." And like, they could see my potential there. So I was like, if these people that saw me, they saw this potential in me when I was doing a completely different role, what is there out there, for more people to see, and what can that really spark in me, and how far can I take this? So I think it was being surrounded by the right people, and by people who I respected, and I really appreciated their voice on, what I was doing. And um, I want to say that like I had all my ducks in a row, but I totally didn't. I was like, okay, we're gonna file an LLC. Yeah, let's do that. I think I need to do that. Yep. And then it
Yeah.
was like, yeah, it was total chaos, I think, for a few months. But now that I've gotten the reins on it, I am now, like, I'm fully comfortable saying I'm a business owner now. Before I would be like, I have this thing. But now the confidence is much more there. But yeah, I would say having the Disney support still so close to me, and those people that I really respected because of how credible their roles were, was really great to have. Like I said, that booster seat kind of like pushing me forward. And I'm still close with a few of my peers and my Disney families. Like you said, once you're connected, you're there forever. So
That's awesome. That is awesome. So you mentioned something that I find very, very valuable, and it's storytelling. Why is storytelling so important in your profession, in your world, and just overall, why is storytelling so important?
yeah, when we think about a company like Disney and why they are so successful, yes, they make lots of money, they have a great marketing campaign, they do it all, right? But the one thing Disney is exceptional at, like they are the best at, is storytelling, because they can connect to their audience.
Mhm.
You think about the movies that we watch and the stories that they tell, and like I always think of the story of when they played Snow White at the Hollywood Theater, back when it came out in the early 30s, and it was like grown men were crying at this cartoon. And Walt was like, "This is what we're supposed to do. Like, this is my purpose. It's like to, connect with people and have them feel this." And so that is what I'm so passionate about. Because I see it happening. I saw it when, people would come meet Pooh Bear for the first time, and, they'd be in tears no matter what their age was. It was that connection to that story and how special that was. And I saw that importance like firsthand, directly in front of me. And I knew I could create that for other people. I knew I could create it for businesses, whether they were, selling themselves, their services, or their products, whatever it was. And so that is why it's so important, because it's how we connect people, and ultimately it's how we sell our service or our product, right? It's how we build trust. So I think that it's so important in marketing, to make sure that you're doing that and you're not skipping that step, because if you do, you're going to lose, that connection to your audience.
For sure, for sure. No, that's powerful, man. And so, we met here at YSU Athletics. You were interning with the marketing team there. And, you mentioned selling yourself and telling your story and creating your brand. And, the NIL is a new rule with NCAA athletics where student athletes can generate revenue through their name, image, and likeness. And what I would like you to do, just from your professional perspective, is, hopefully, there may be students or student athletes or small business owners, medium-sized business owners, large business owners who are listening to this, and they're wondering, like, how can I leverage my brand, and how can I build my brand? From your professional experience, if someone's looking to take away 2 or 3 things that they can do to help leverage their brand and build their brand and tell their story, um, be like a student athlete in hopes to generate revenue, or a small business owner to generate revenue for their company, what would your thoughts be if you had 2 or 3 points to where they can, tell their story and build their brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is, be authentic, and stay true to yourself. I think it's very easy when we think about personal branding to think of it as this thing that needs a ton of strategy or, structure, and it needs to be lined up completely. But it's personal, right? If you think about your personal life, nothing ever goes that way. As much as we try to plan things, that's not the way that they work out sometimes. So if you stay authentic and you stay true to yourself, even though it might lead you down different paths, there's always that, part of you that is consistent, that remains consistent, whether it be in what you enjoy or your values, your integrity, none of that's going to change. So if you stay true to who you are and you really follow the things that you enjoy because they're what you want and it's not pleasing other people, you're going to build a personal brand, whether without knowing, it'll come naturally.
Right.
And the second thing is to be consistent. If I tell business owners all the time, sometimes we run into this like squirrel syndrome where we're like chasing the next like greatest thing. And sometimes that works for brands. Like they're known for their inconsistency, but
Right.
in itself, it's consistently inconsistent, right? So be consistent with whatever, your heart is going towards. And I think that will, make that vision a little bit clearer for you. And it'll appeal to more people because they're going to know what, if you're looking at a personal brand and you're looking to pay somebody to do, a product highlight or something of that nature, they're going to look for that consistency. So from a business perspective, the employer or whoever you're working with is going to want to know what they're going to get from you. So that's also really important. So I think those are my big two takeaways.
Okay, awesome. That's perfect. That is perfect. Thank you for sharing those two notes, and hopefully someone can take those and dive into them. So as we finish up the show today, I close out the same way with every guest, and I'm huge on giving those who are alive their roses, who have meant something to us, who have been mentors to us, and shared their life with us. And so what I would like you to do today is give your rose to someone that's alive, that has been a mentor to you or impacted your life on this journey that you've been on.
Yeah, I would give that rose to my former dance teacher and majorette instructor, Shannon Antonucci. And she would probably beam up if she knew I said that, because I probably don't tell her enough how grateful I am for her. But I went through a really hard patch in college, and she was just there for me every step of the way and still is. And probably one of my biggest cheerleaders. And I'm very grateful for her. And she's an inspiration to me. So
that's awesome. Shout out to Shannon, and appreciate all that you've done for Jenna's life. And again, Jenna, we thank you so much for sharing your time. And so as we close out, how can people learn more about Jenna and JC Creative Media?
Yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. My personal profile is just Jenna Parkany, or if you'd like to follow the business page, I'm JC_Creative Media on both Instagram and LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me there. I love hearing from other creatives and of course, business owners who want to learn more about my services.
That's awesome, Jenna. Well, thank you. I know you're a very busy individual down in Florida. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today. And hopefully maybe we'll circle back around here in 1 or 2 years and catch up on what you've been up to and some of the things that you've accomplished there with JC Creative Media.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. It was good talking to you.
Thank you so much for listening to Under the Wing. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you enjoyed today's show and you would like to support the podcast, tell a friend or two, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Facebook at Under the Wing with Andrew. Again, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.